With the Rugby League World Cup fast approaching this October, let's do a brief preview on it. Quick preview. We've got 4 groups to discuss, and then the first stages of the knockout stages is where we can work out who will most likely be playing who. Now, Group A is headed by England. They're the favourites to storm through that group. You've got Samoa, France, and debutant Greece in there. I think the second place is where it's going to get interesting. It's a toss-up between Samoa and France. It's all about who the Samoans can name in their squad and who makes themselves eligible for Samoa. And the French, Catalan have a pretty solid squad and a lot of French players in that squad, and Toulouse Olympique are rapidly improving season on season and are the best team in the championship, in my opinion, and maybe a Super League side by the time the World Cup comes along if they win the championship. So I think the French could actually name a pretty solid squad. Samoa is, again, as I say, about who they can name in that team. The Greeks, I hope the Greeks are as competitive as possible. That's my hope. There is going to be a sprinkling of NRL experience in there, but we're talking about lower grade players who don't play at the top level. It's going to be interesting to see how competitive and how fit they are. I can't see them winning even against the French. But it's good to see a new nation take part in the World Cup. It shows that the sport is growing. So good luck to the Greeks, but it will be interesting to see how they play and if they can keep the score down and realistic. Group B is headed by Australia with Fiji, Scotland and Italy in there. I think second place is a toss-up between Fiji, Scotland and Italy. Again, yes, the Fijians have got some terrifying wingers in Ravalawa and Micah Sivo, but it's again how they can structure their halves and structure their play and their discipline. You could have Tarek Sims in there, and Corbin Sims in there in the forward pack, but again, they need to have a few more players than that. Switch allegiance from Australia or New Zealand and want to play for Fiji for them to really go far in the tournament. I think the halves combination for the Fijians could let them down. I don't think they've got a strong halves combination. I can't think of an outstanding Fijian halfback. Australia, they're in a transition phase. We know the Tongans have beaten them, so we know they're vulnerable. Jake Friend retiring. Yes, there's some good up-and-coming hookers. There's no Cameron Smith anymore. Boyd Cordner, his injury concerns. Who is going to be the starting halves? Probably Nathan Cleary. If I'm honest, I think he will be in there. You've got Jack Wright, and you've got a whole host of players who can play in the halves. You've got a whole host of players who play in the centres, on the wing, and at fullback. The back line, basically, there's too much depth. There's going to be some very good players that miss out in this World Cup. The forward pack is, again, will select itself. Again, the depth of talent the Australians have, they're going to be spoilt for choice. That could actually prove a problem. They need to get the balance of the team right. Is it going to be Cherry Evans in there? Is it going to be Cleary in there? Who starts at 6? Who starts at 7? Who is your first choice fullback? Is it going to be James Tedesco? And I think State of Origin coming up in a few days' time. Game 1, Game 2 and Game 3, the State of Origin series will go a long way to tell us who makes that final Australian squad. But yes, there's a fair bit of the season left to go as well. And finals, injuries and retirements. Look at Jake Friend retiring already this season. Could have an impact on that Australian side. Scotland and Italy. Scotland at the last World Cup were absolutely abysmal, and I can't see them getting much better. Italy, I think, could possibly sneak into a knockout stage game. But it is a toss-up for those 3 teams. It's about what Fijian team is available, who decides not to play for Australia or New Zealand and actually play for Fiji. Scotland, considering how they played at the last World Cup, which was a litany of poor discipline and really poor performances, is going to be interesting. And Italy will have some pretty solid talent there, but I think they are weaker than years past. So Australia have an easier route out of the group with less of a physical battle to get through there. Group C is going to be interesting because you've got New Zealand, who are the clear favourites, but Lebanon have a lot of NRL talent. Adam Dewey is the standout player. Twal is another player. Obviously, Mitch Moses as well. So they have some talented players who are eligible to represent Lebanon, who are playing really well right now. Moses and Adam Dewey, that's a good halves combination. Big, you've got a big half and a nippy smaller half, and yeah, they are exceptionally talented. But they play for rival clubs, so it will be interesting to see if that rivalry at club level is put aside for the national team. Jamaica, debutants, it's going to be interesting to see how they perform as well. Ireland, there's going to be some NRL talent in there. There's going to be some Super League talent in there. The Ireland side could be a dark horse to finish second in that group. New Zealand, again, much like Australia and England, I think, will easily top the group with 3 wins. Jamaica, much like Greece, debutants. How competitive can they be against experienced international teams? They may finish bottom, they may not. They might sneak a win in there. It'll be interesting to see how competitive the Jamaicans are as well. But it's good to see yet another new nation taking part in the World Cup. It's showing that the sport is growing. Finally, we get to Group D, and this is where I think it's completely open and up in the air. Tonga, PNG, Wales, and the Cook Islands. Tonga, I think, are the favourites. They've beaten the Australians. They are my personal dark horse yet again for the World Cup. They were my dark horses 4 years ago. I believe they could actually be the outsiders' bet for the final. They got to the semi-final 4 years ago. I think they can take that next step. They've proven they can beat the Australians in a test match. It's all about who they draw in the quarterfinals, basically. PNG, can they win away from home? Can they actually get wins away from home? They made the quarterfinals 4 years ago. Can they win away from home and put some results in? Because the Welsh will be a solid outfit. So will PNG. They'll both be solid outfits. And the Cook Islands have got a couple of NRL players who can play for the Cook Islands. Nickel Clockstadt, okay, he's got neck surgery and he may not be back again this season. And Dylan Napa eligible to represent the Cook Islands. There's a few other up-and-coming players who can also represent the Cook Islands. Again, it depends if they are selected for New Zealand or Australia and whether they decide to represent the Cook Islands. But the Cook Islands will be competitive. And this could be a very open group. I think Tonga are the favourites. It's all about if PNG can win away from home. If PNG can actually win some games away from home, they will finish second in the group. I think Tonga have too much skill for them, but PNG will not be lacking physicality. So it'll be interesting to see the top 2 of each group go through. Now, the knockout stages get very interesting. So the Group B winner, which is most likely Australia, will most likely be playing Lebanon or Ireland in the first quarter final. The Group C winner, which is most likely New Zealand, will most likely be playing Fiji or Italy, in my opinion. Group A, the winner of that, most likely England, will be playing most likely Papua New Guinea. The last time PNG played Great Britain, they beat them and came from behind to do so and beat them very comfortably in the end. And of course, that means Tonga will most likely play Samoa or France. The winner of the first quarterfinal will play the winner of the second quarterfinal, which means Australia might be playing New Zealand as soon as the semi-finals, and England might be playing Tonga as soon as the semi-finals. If we're going by, what we believe the final 4 will be, and that's pretty much the semi-finals from 4 years ago. Hopefully, there's some upsets in there because I can see Tonga upsetting England in the semi-final, for example. I can see Fiji giving Australia a good game. And I can see Lebanon, if New Zealand are not on form, and New Zealand at the last World Cup weren't great. They weren't overly selling themselves to me. They didn't look fluid, and they were poor. So I can see New Zealand possibly suffering an upset, but some great new young talent has come through in the last 4 years across the board. I think the quality and talent that's come through the NRL and Super League in the last 4 years amazes me, especially the NRL. You just have to look at some of the young 18, 19 and 20-year-old players who are currently playing in the NRL right now. We could definitely see some shock upsets come the quarterfinal stage. But when I'm saying England and Samoa could be the top 2, France could get in there. France get in there, that then throws a different, mixer in. PNG, we know they're going to be physical. Can they keep their discipline? But I think the final 4, the semi-finalists, will be England versus Tonga, Australia versus New Zealand. So we could have an England-Australia final or a Tonga-New Zealand final. And either way, Tonga could, in theory, make the final. And if Tonga make the final, that could be really interesting because we know they can beat the Australians. We know they can beat the Kiwis as well. And we know they've beaten a Great Britain side recently, which is pretty much an English side with a couple of other nationalities in there. Tonga could be the dark horses. But there we go. That's my little preview. Obviously, the games have got to be played. I'm actually looking forward to seeing France play Greece and Jamaica play Ireland. I'm looking forward to Wales play the Cook Islands because some of these guys are putting themselves in the shop window for bigger clubs and it will also help grow the game. So I'm looking forward to these, what we would call dead rubbers, where we know these teams aren't going to make the knockout stages, but we know they've got talented players in their rosters, and we know that for Greece and Jamaica, this is their first World Cup, and hopefully not their last World Cup. and we know we need to grow the game to make it on a level playing field with rugby union. And this is a great advert, and every single game will be live on free-to-air TV in the UK. It's been beamed across the world. I wouldn't be surprised if all of Jamaica tunes in, all of Greece tunes in, because it's their national sides are making a national tournament. And the Cook Islands and Wales and Ireland and Italy and Scotland, they have some pretty talented players. It's whether they can get that 80-minute performance out. And the big nations, it's about who actually can perform on the day and get through some tricky banana skins in there. But thank you very much for watching. Who do you think is going to make the final four? Because I think it's going to be England, Tonga, Australia, and New Zealand. Out of that, I think it's more open than 4 years ago. I think Australia are weaker than what they were 4 years ago. New Zealand had a poor World Cup 4 years ago. Much is expected of them. England being hosts, you would expect them to try and actually win the tournament. And Tonga are my dark horses because they've proven they can beat the Australians and a Great Britain squad. So this Tongan side could be very, very dangerous. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts below, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.